200 years ago, Earth was dying. The Red Death, as people called it, swept through every human colony like fire through dry grass. It started on Mars, in the mining settlements. Workers coughed blood and collapsed at their stations. Within days, entire facilities went silent. The plague jumped to Europa, then Titan, then Earth itself. Captain Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the casualty reports scroll across his screen. 12 billion humans had lived among the stars just 5 years ago. Now only 3 billion remained. The hospitals overflowed with the sick and dying. The best scientists on Earth worked day and night, but no cure came. No treatment worked. Humanity had conquered space, built cities on distant worlds, and reached for the stars. But a microscopic enemy was erasing everything they had built. Jack was tired. His crew was tired. Everyone was tired of watching people die. His own sister had succumbed to the plague last month. He still kept her picture on his desk, smiling in her medical uniform, unaware of the death that would claim her. The alert came on a Tuesday morning. Unknown ships entering the solar system. Jack's hand moved to the weapons console out of habit. But he stopped. What was the point? If these aliens wanted to finish off humanity, there was little anyone could do to stop them. But the ships did not fire. They broadcast a message in perfect English. "We are the Kalari. We have heard of your suffering. We bring medicine." Ambassador Vrel stepped off his shuttle 3 hours later. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow in the light. His eyes were kind. Jack had seen many things in his years in space, but he had never seen kindness like this from a stranger. "We require nothing in return," Vrel said simply. "We only ask for your friendship." The Kalari distributed their cure freely. They went to every colony, every station, every ship. They saved children in hospitals and miners on distant asteroids. They asked for no payment, no territory, no treaties. Within 6 months, the Red Death was gone. Humanity began to heal. Commander Lisa Hayes stood before the Kalari delegation as they prepared to leave. She had lost her husband and both her parents to the plague. The Kalari medicine had saved her daughter. "If you ever need us," Lisa said, her voice shaking with emotion, "we will come. No matter the cost, no matter the distance. You saved us when we had nothing to offer. We will never forget this debt." Vrel smiled gently. "We hope that day never comes, but we thank you for your words." The Kalari left as quietly as they had arrived. Earth built a monument in Geneva. A tall pillar of white stone with words carved in every human language. "We remember. We will answer." Years passed. Decades. Humanity rebuilt. They expanded to 40 star systems. Cities rose from the ashes. The population grew again. Children were born who never knew the Red Death. The Kalari became a story. A legend from the history books. Most people forgot about them entirely, but not everyone forgot. Lieutenant Danny Parker kept a small stone in his quarters aboard the Earth defense ship Valiant. It was blue and smooth, covered in Kalari writing. His grandmother had given it to him before she died. She had been one of the saved, pulled back from death's door by Kalari medicine in a hospital in New York. "Never forget what they did for us," she had told him, pressing the stone into his young hands. "Promise me." Danny had promised. He kept the stone with him always. When other officers laughed about the ancient history they had to memorize at the academy, Danny stayed quiet. He knew the Kalari were real. He knew the debt was real. He was cleaning his quarters when the alarm sounded. All officers to the briefing room. Danny grabbed his uniform jacket and ran. The briefing room was packed. Admiral Greg Sullivan stood at the front, his face grave. Behind him, a star map glowed on the screen. A single point pulsed red in the far corner of known space. 72 hours ago, Sullivan began. Our deep space monitoring station picked up a signal. It's old Kalari code. We haven't heard from them in nearly 2 centuries. The room went silent. Danny felt his heart beating faster. Sullivan played the message. The voice was weak, breaking with static. This is Kilari Prime. We are under attack. Our worlds are dying. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. They are coming. They are. The message cut off. The signal is 47 days old, Sullivan continued. It came from the Kilari home system. Long-range scans show multiple hostile ships in the area. Signatures match the Krell Dominion. Lozend 2. Lozend 2. Someone whispered a curse. Everyone knew about the Krell. They were conquerors who swept through the galaxy, destroying entire civilizations. They had wiped out 14 species in the past century alone. The Council has voted, Sullivan said, and Danny heard the anger in his voice. They say the Kilari system is too far. 6 months travel at maximum speed. They say we have our own problems. They say the debt was paid in goodwill years ago. Danny stood up. His chair scraped loudly in the quiet room. Every eye turned to him. Permission to speak, sir? Sullivan nodded. Danny removed his uniform insignia, the silver bars that marked him as an officer. He placed them on the table. Then I go as a civilian, sir. Who's with me? For a moment, no one moved. Then Captain Amy Chen stood. She removed her insignia. Then Lieutenant Ben Carter. Then Sophie Green. Then Claire Davis. Within 2 minutes, 300 officers stood, their insignia piled on the tables. Admiral Sullivan looked at them all. A tear rolled down his weathered cheek. His own daughter had died in the final days of the plague, saved only because Kilari medicine reached her hospital in time. Belay that order, Sullivan said loudly. Keep your insignia, all of you. He turned to the screen. I'm overriding the council. We're going. All of us. Within 72 hours, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, gathered in Earth orbit. 47 warships, led by the massive Earth defense ship Reckoning. Admiral Sullivan commanded from the bridge. As the fleet prepared to jump to faster than light speed, Danny looked at his Kilari stone one last time. We're coming, he whispered. Like we promised. The fleet jumped. 6 months of travel lay ahead. 6 months to reach their friends. 6 months too late to save billions, they would discover. But not too late to make the enemy regret everything. The fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kilari system. What they saw made even the most experienced officers fall silent with horror. 12 worlds burned. Not metaphorically, literally burned. Orbital bombardment had turned cities into lakes of molten glass. Forests were ash. Oceans boiled under the relentless fire from above. Massive Krell ships hung in the atmosphere like metal vultures, continuing their destruction long after resistance had ended. Admiral Sullivan gripped the arms of his command chair so hard his knuckles turned white. He had seen war before. He had fought pirates and raiders. But this was not war. This was extermination. Casualty estimates, he said quietly. Lieutenant Megan Foster worked her console, her hands shaking. Sir, based on the damage patterns and last known Kilari population figures, billions. At least 7 billion dead, maybe more. Someone vomited in a corner. No one blamed them. Survivors? Sullivan asked. Scanning now, sir. I'm picking up life signs on Kilari Prime. The home world. Underground shelters. Maybe 50 million still alive. But sir, Foster's voice broke. Krell ground forces are surrounding the shelters. They're preparing a final assault. Danny Parker stood at his station, staring at the tactical display. 50 million. Out of billions. The Kilari had saved 3 billion humans. And humanity had arrived too late to return the favor. The communications console beeped. A message incoming from the Krell flagship. Put it through, Sullivan ordered. The face that appeared on screen was reptilian, covered in dark scales. Yellow eyes studied the human fleet with amusement. This was Commander Zathros, leader of the Krell assault force. So, Zathros said, his voice like grinding stones, the Kalari's pets have arrived. How touching. Did your masters send you to die alongside them? Sullivan stood slowly. I am Admiral Greg Sullivan of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are attacking our allies. Withdraw immediately. One fleet. Zathros laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Allies? The weak creatures who gave you medicine? You call that strength? We have conquered 200 species across this galaxy. You will be number 201. Leave now, and we will make your deaths quick. You've made 3 mistakes, Sullivan said, his voice cold and calm. First, you hurt our friends. Second, you think we're weak because we value mercy. Third, you believe you can win. Brave words from such a small fleet. Zathros sneered. I have 200 warships. You have 47. The mathematics are simple. End one. Mathematics, Sullivan agreed. Let me teach you some human mathematics. This conversation is over. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All ships, battle stations, weapons free. Commander Parker, launch the rescue operation for Kalara Prime. Captain Green, your Marines deploy in 10 minutes. Everyone else, show these butchers what happens when they threaten our friends. The fleet split. 20 ships, led by Lieutenant Ben Carter's fighter squadron, burned at maximum speed toward Kalara Prime. The remaining 27, including the Reckoning, positioned themselves between the Krell fleet and the rescue operation. Carter's voice came over the comm. Rescue team away, sir. We'll get them out. I know you will, son, Sullivan replied. We'll keep the bastards busy. The Krell fleet moved to intercept. 200 massive warships against 27 human vessels. By every tactical analysis, humanity should have retreated, should have run, should have saved themselves. But tactical analysis did not account for rage. Carter's squadron screamed into Kalara Prime's atmosphere. The planet below was a nightmare. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were rubble. The elegant Kalari architecture was shattered and burned. Bodies lay in the streets. Focus on the mission, Carter said to his pilots, though his own voice shook with fury. We save who we can. The Krell ground forces had surrounded the last shelter complex. Massive blast doors were all that kept 50 million Kalari alive. Krell soldiers were setting up chemical weapons, preparing to pump nerve gas into the underground chambers. Carter armed his missiles. All fighters, target those gas tanks. Don't let a single canister reach those doors. The human fighters dove. Krell anti-aircraft fire filled the sky. 2 fighters exploded in the first pass. But the rest kept coming. Missiles slammed into the gas tanks, turning them into fireballs. Krell soldiers scattered. Behind the fighters, massive transport ships descended. Captain Sophie Green stood in the lead ship, checking her weapon one last time. She commanded 2,000 Marines. The finest soldiers Earth had. Listen up, she said over the company channel. Those shelters hold 50 million innocent people. They saved our species 200 years ago. Now we return the favor. Yes, ma'am, 2,000 voices shouted. The transports landed hard. Ramps dropped. Marines poured out in perfect formation. The Krell turned to face this new threat. And for the first time, they hesitated. They had fought many species, but they had never seen soldiers like these. Human Marines moved with mechanical precision. Their weapons fired in controlled bursts. They covered each other perfectly. Every shot found a target. The Krell outnumbered them 3-1, but it did not matter. Green led from the front, her rifle barking commands as surely as her voice. Second company, left flank. Third company, secure that ridge. First company, with me. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Krell kept coming, wave after wave. But the human Marines held the line. They did not retreat. They did not falter. When ammunition ran low, they used Krell weapons. When weapons failed, they used knives. When knives broke, they used their hands. Finally, the shelter doors opened. Kalari civilians emerged, blinking in the light. They looked at the human soldiers, covered in blood and dust, standing guard over them. An elderly Kalari woman approached Sophie Green. You came? Sophie smiled through her exhaustion. We promised we would. Let's get you to the ships. The evacuation began. 50 million Kalari, guided by human soldiers to waiting transports. Above the planet, Carter's fighters still dueled with Krell aircraft, keeping the skies clear. All civilians aboard, Green finally reported. We're ready for dust-off. Negative, Carter replied. Krell reinforcements incoming. 70 ships breaking orbit, heading your way. Green checked her ammunition. Nearly empty. Most of her Marines were wounded. The Kalari transports were loaded but vulnerable. Then we buy them time to escape, she said simply. But she did not have to. In orbit above, Admiral Sullivan had been waiting for this moment. All ships, he broadcast. Engage at will. Show them why you don't threaten humanity's friends. The human fleet opened fire. The Krell had fought 200 species. They had destroyed civilizations that had existed for millennia. They knew war in all its forms. But they had never fought humans. The first Krell ship to die never saw what killed it. A human destroyer, the Swift Justice, fired a kinetic round at a fraction of light speed. The tungsten rod punched through the Krell warship's shields like they were paper, through the armor like it was glass, and out the other side. The ship split in half and exploded. Target destroyed, Lieutenant Ryan Mitchell reported calmly from the Swift Justice. Acquiring next target. Commander Zathros watched in disbelief as 3 more of his ships vanished from sensors. What are they using? Those weapons should not be possible. They're using physics, Commander, his tactical officer replied nervously. Simple kinetic energy, mass times velocity. Nothing to counter, nothing to deflect. Another human weapon emerged. Missiles that burned at temperatures hot enough to melt battle armor. The Krell called them Hellfire weapons, and the name spread quickly through their fleet. Wherever the missiles struck, metal turned to liquid, and crews burned alive. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Zathros screamed. But the human targeting was too accurate. The Earth Defense Ship Reckoning fired its main cannons. Electromagnetic pulses washed over a Krell battle group. Shields collapsed. Power died. 20 ships went dark in an instant. Drifting helplessly, human destroyers moved in like sharks, finishing the crippled vessels with precise fire. Impossible! Zathros slammed his fist on his console. They're primitives. They should not have these weapons. But humanity had spent 200 years preparing. They had rebuilt, after the Red Death, stronger than before. They had developed weapons and hidden them, hoping never to use them. They had trained for war while building peace. Now that training showed. Captain Claire Davis commanded the stealth ship Shadow Dancer. Her vessel, and 19 others like it, were humanity's secret weapon. They did not appear on any sensor. They could not be tracked. They moved through the Krell fleet like ghosts. Target acquired, Davis said softly. Krell supply ship. Coordinates 77, Mark III. Firing. The supply ship exploded. Krell warships suddenly found themselves low on ammunition, low on fuel. Unable to continue the fight. Another supply ship destroyed. A Krell captain reported to Zathros. We can't find them. They're invisible. Nothing is invisible, Zathros roared. But even as he said it, 2 more supply ships vanished from his tactical display. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination. Each ship knew its role. Each captain trusted their admiral. They had practiced this dance 1,000 times in simulations. Now, they performed it for real. 3 hours into the battle, the Krell had lost 50 ships, The humans had lost too. This is impossible. Zathros muttered. We are the Krell. We do not lose. He opened a channel to his superiors. This is Commander Zathros. I require reinforcements. The humans, they fight like demons. They don't retreat. They don't surrender. Send everything we have. The response came 6 hours later. 100 additional Krell warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. Admiral Sullivan watched them arrive on his sensors. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead where a console had exploded. 3 of his ships were crippled. But he smiled. All ships, pull back to defensive formation Delta. Let them come to us. Sir, Danny Parker said quietly. With those reinforcements. They have nearly 300 ships now. I know, Sullivan replied. He touched a control on his chair. A secure channel opened to Earth, 6 months away. The message would not arrive for half a year, but he sent it anyway. To Earth Command. We have engaged the Krell at Kellera Prime. We will not surrender. We will not retreat. If we fall here, tell our families we died defending those who saved us. Tell them the debt is paid. He paused. And send more ships. Because we're not done yet. He closed the channel and looked at his crew. Young faces. Determined faces. Scared, but unbowed. The Kellari saved us when we were dying. Sullivan said. They asked for nothing. They gave everything. Now they're dying. And they called for us. We answered, whatever happens next, be proud. Be proud. That when our friends needed us, we came. The crew stood straighter. Weapons were checked. Systems were repaired as best they could be. The Krell reinforcements charged forward, confident in their numbers. They did not know that humanity had one more secret. One more weapon they had sworn never to use. Admiral Sullivan had spent 3 days deciding whether to authorize it. 3 days. Weighing the morality of such power. Then he had seen the burning Kellari worlds. He had seen the bodies. He had heard the screams. His decision was made. Activate Phantom Protocol, Sullivan ordered. Across the human fleet, weapons came online that had never been fired in combat. Weapons that bent physics itself. Weapons that made the kinetic rounds, and Hellfire missiles, look gentle. The Krell fleet advanced into the trap, and humanity showed the galaxy what happened when they made humans angry. The battle would last 3 more days. When it ended, the Krell Empire would never be the same. The Krell reinforcements came like a tidal wave of metal and fury. 300 warships against humanity's battered fleet. By all logic, the battle was over. Humanity should have run. But Admiral Sullivan had activated Phantom Protocol. The first Krell ship to enter the designated kill zone simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, shields bright and weapons armed. The next moment, there was only empty space and scattered atoms. What was that? Commander Zathros screamed. Report! Unknown weapon, sir, his tactical officer replied, voice shaking. Some kind of matter. Disintegration beam. It bypassed shields completely. Another Krell ship vanished. Then 2 more. The human ship responsible was the Reckoning itself. In its belly, a weapon humanity had developed 50 years ago, hummed with terrible power. Scientists had called it the Erasure Beam. Military commanders had called it immoral. The weapons testing board had nearly banned it entirely, but they had not destroyed it. They had stored it, hoping never to need it. Now Danny Parker operated the targeting controls while Admiral Sullivan gave the orders. Each shot required tremendous energy. The Reckoning could only fire it 12 times before needing to recharge for an hour. But 12 shots meant 12 dead Krell ships. Target locked, Danny said. Fire, Sullivan replied without hesitation. Another Krell warship simply stopped existing. The Krell fleet faltered. Species they had conquered before had begged for mercy. They had surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. But humans did not beg. They did not surrender. They fought with weapons that should not exist, and a fury that seemed endless. All ships, concentrate fire on that human flagship, Zathros ordered. Kill it now. 50 Krell ships turned their weapons on the reckoning. Missiles and energy beams converged on the human vessel. The shields flared, held for 3 seconds, then collapsed. Explosions ripped through the reckoning's hull. Admiral Sullivan was thrown from his chair. Alarms screamed. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 9, Lieutenant Foster reported. Shield generators offline. Erasure beam destroyed. Sir, we need to pull back. Sullivan pulled himself up, blood running from a gash on his head. Negative. Maintain position. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, the Reckoning is wounded but not dead. Continue the attack. Don't worry about us. But his crew worried. Danny Parker looked at the damage reports and made a decision. Sir, permission to evacuate the bridge. We can run the ship from auxiliary control. Denied, Sullivan said firmly. A captain does not abandon his bridge. Then we stay with you, sir. Amy Chen said. The other officers nodded. Sullivan looked at them all. These young men and women who had volunteered to cross the galaxy for people they had never met. His heart ached with pride. Very well, he said quietly. Then let's make our last shots count. But humanity's other ships had not been idle. The stealth vessels under Captain Claire Davis had been circling the Krell fleet like wolves. While the Krell focused on the Reckoning, the invisible human ships struck. Davis targeted the Krell command ship where Zathros commanded. Lock all weapons on their bridge. Fire on my mark. Her stealth ship carried experimental missiles, called piercers. They did not explode on contact. They punched through armor, through bulkheads, through everything in their path until they reached the ship's core. Mark, Davis said calmly. 6 piercers launched. Zathros saw them on sensors for half a second before they hit. The missiles tore through his ship like bullets through paper. He had time to scream before the warheads detonated. The Krell command ship broke apart, spilling bodies and debris into space. The Krell fleet wavered. Their commander was dead. The human ships they thought were defeated kept fighting. The invisible ships were everywhere and nowhere. For the first time in 300 years of conquest, the Krell began to retreat. They're pulling back, Ben Carter shouted from his fighter. The bastards are running. But Sullivan was not satisfied. Not nearly satisfied. Pursue, he ordered. Don't let them regroup. The human fleet chased the fleeing Krell ships. What had been a battle became a hunt. Human weapons, designed for efficiency and precision, tore apart the slower Krell vessels. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries died in fire and silence. 3 days the battle raged. The Krell kept calling for more reinforcements. Humanity kept destroying them. The asteroid fields around Calera Prime became a graveyard of shattered ships. On the 3rd day, a new fleet arrived. But these were not Krell ships. They were commanded by Emperor Vaxcor himself, the leader of the entire Krell Dominion. He had come with 300 of his best warships to crush the humans who dared resist. I will make an example of your species, Vaxcor broadcast. Your world will burn, as the Kalari worlds burned. Your children will know only slavery. Admiral Sullivan, bandaged and exhausted, looked at the tactical display. The Reckoning was barely functional. Half his fleet was destroyed or crippled. His crew had been fighting for 3 days without sleep. He should have surrendered. He should have saved his remaining ships and people. Instead, he smiled. Lieutenant Parker, he said, you have command of the Reckoning. Danny looked at him in shock. Sir, that's an order. I'm taking a shuttle to the damaged sections to help with repairs. Sullivan stood, wincing from his wounds. The ship is yours. Don't let me down. Our mead. Before Danny could protest, Sullivan left the bridge. Danny stood there, 26 years old. Suddenly, in command of humanity's flagship, in the middle of the largest space battle in human history. He looked at the crew. They looked back at him. Amy Chen spoke first. "Orders, sir?" Danny thought of his grandmother, dead 15 years now. He thought of the Kelari prayer stone in his quarters, probably destroyed when the ship was hit. He thought of the billions of Kelari who had died before humanity could arrive. He thought of the promise. "We will answer. All ships," Danny broadcast. "This is the reckoning. We're going to charge directly at the enemy flagship. Anyone who wants to follow, you're welcome to join. Everyone else, cover the Kelari evacuation ships." "Sir," Foster said carefully, "charging their flagship would be suicide." "I know," Danny replied. "But they're expecting us to run. They always expect people to run. We're going to show them what humanity does when our friends need us." He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "For those who saved us," he said simply. One by one, every human ship turned toward the Krell Emperor's flagship. Damaged ships with broken shields, fighters low on ammunition, destroyers running on emergency power. They all came. The Krell fleet moved to intercept, confident in their numbers. Emperor Vaxkor laughed as he watched the human ships approach. "They're insane," he said. "Kill them all." The two fleets collided in a maelstrom of fire and death. Human ships did not try to dodge or evade. They charged straight ahead, trading shot for shot. When a human destroyer's weapons failed, it rammed a Krell cruiser, both ships exploding together. Lieutenant Amy Chen, commanding the damaged vessel Star Runner, found her engines failing. Krell ships moved in for the kill. She looked at her crew. "We can eject?" her second officer suggested. Amy shook her head. She pointed the dying Star Runner at the nearest Krell dreadnought. "Impact in 30 seconds. It's been an honor serving with you all. Impact. Axavan bow. Enda. Impact in 30 seconds. The crew stayed at their stations. No one ran. No one abandoned ship. The Star Runner struck the Krell dreadnought at full speed. The explosion lit up the darkness like a newborn star. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Humans trading their lives to take down Krell ships. Not because they were ordered to. Because they chose to. Emperor Vaxkor stopped laughing. He watched his fleet dying, ship by ship, against an enemy that refused to break. "What are these creatures?" he whispered. Danny Parker, piloting the crippled Reckoning, had one target. The Emperor's throne ship. It was massive, 5 times the size of any human vessel. Its shields could withstand anything humanity had, but shields needed power. And power came from generators. "All remaining fighters, target their shield generators," Danny ordered. "Punch a hole." Ben Carter and the surviving pilots dove in. Most died in the attempt, but enough got through. Their missiles hit the generator complex. Shields flickered. "Now!" Danny shouted. The Reckoning, broken and burning, lunged forward. Its remaining weapons fired continuously. Every missile, every railgun round, every ounce of ammunition in its magazines launched at the throne ship. The Krell shields collapsed. Human weapons struck the hull. Explosions rippled across the Emperor's vessel. Vaxkor felt his ship dying around him. "Retreat!" he screamed. "All ships, retreat!" The Krell fleet, or what remained of it, turned and ran. They jumped to faster than light speed and fled the system, leaving behind 400 destroyed warships. Danny watched them go on his flickering screens. Then, he collapsed in his chair, exhausted beyond measure. "We did it," someone whispered. The human fleet drifted in space, victorious, but shattered. Of the 47 ships that had come to save the Kelari, only 18 remained functional. 12,000 humans had died. But 50 million Kelari lived. Admiral Sullivan returned to the bridge, his uniform covered in soot from fighting fires in the damaged sections. He looked at Danny with pride. "Well done, Lieutenant. Or should I say, Captain?" Danny just nodded, too tired to speak. Below them, on Kelara Prime, the rescued Kelari civilians looked up at the stars where their saviors had fought. They had watched the battle on screens, seen the humans sacrifice themselves again and again. An elderly Kilari, Ambassador Vrel, now ancient beyond measure, wept quietly. "They came," he said to anyone who would listen. "We were dying. And they came. The debt was paid. But the cost had been terrible." The week after the battle, Earth mourned. News had reached home of the victory at Kalara Prime, but also of the terrible price. 12,000 dead. Thousands more wounded. 29 warships destroyed. In cities across Earth and its colonies, people gathered to remember. They spoke the names of the fallen. They honored those who had crossed the galaxy to repay a 200-year-old debt. But Earth was not alone in watching. The entire galaxy watched. The Galactic Council, a gathering of hundreds of advanced species, held an emergency session. They had ignored the Kalari's distress calls. They had done nothing while the Krell slaughtered billions. Now they watched recordings of the battle and saw what humanity had done. "They defeated the Krell," one counselor said in disbelief. "A species barely 200 years into space travel defeated the Krell Empire." "Not just defeated," another added. "Destroyed. 400 Krell warships gone. Emperor Voxcor himself fled in terror." "How did they develop such weapons?" a third asked. "We have laws against weapons of that power. Humanity never signed our accords," someone pointed out. "They were never bound by our rules." The recordings played again. Human ships ramming Krell vessels. The erasure beam disintegrating warships. Amy Chen's final charge. The chase across the Kalari system. "They fight without mercy," a counselor observed. "No," another corrected. "They fight with perfect loyalty." There's a difference. Word spread beyond the council chambers. In Krell space, the returning survivors told tales of the humans who fought like demons, who never retreated, who valued their friends more than their own lives. The Krell Empire, which had stood for 1,000 years, began to crack. Species they had conquered heard the stories and rebelled. "If the humans could defeat the Krell," they said, "so can we." Loster live. We? Lost live. Within a year, the Krell would lose half their territory. Within 5, the Empire would collapse completely. All because humanity had shown that the Krell could be beaten. On Killara Prime, the rebuilding had begun. The 50 million survivors worked alongside human volunteers who had stayed behind. Engineers from Earth helped design new cities. Doctors treated the wounded. Teachers helped Kilari children who had lost everything. Danny Parker stood in what had once been a beautiful park. Now it was rubble and ash. But Kilari workers were planting new trees, building new paths, choosing to rebuild rather than despair. Ambassador Vrel approached him slowly. The old Kilari moved with difficulty now, leaning on a cane. "Captain Parker," Vrel said. "Humanity had promoted Danny for his actions in the battle. I wanted to thank you. Personally, we owed you," Danny replied simply. 200 years ago, you saved us. "We saved you because it was right," Vrel said. "We expected nothing in return. But you came anyway. Why?" Danny thought about his grandmother. About the prayer stone, lost somewhere in the Reckoning's destroyed sections. About Lisa Hayes's promise centuries ago. "Because that's what friends do," he said. Vrel wept, silver tears running down his face. "We thought we would die alone. That the galaxy would watch and do nothing. But you came. Vrel. We'll always come," Danny promised. "For you, for any who need help. That's who we are." News of this conversation spread too. Across the galaxy, species began to reconsider their opinion of humanity. These were not conquerors, not empire builders. They were something else entirely. The Galactic Council sent a formal invitation to Earth. "Please join us. We need voices like yours in our halls." Earth's government debated. Some wanted to accept, others preferred isolation. Admiral Sullivan, recovered from his wounds and now promoted to fleet commander, addressed the Earth Senate. We should join. Not because we want power, but because the galaxy needs to see that strength and compassion can coexist. That you can be powerful without being cruel. The Senate voted. Earth would join the Council. But on one condition. We will defend our allies, the human ambassador declared at her first council meeting. We will protect the weak. And if you abandon someone who calls for help, do not expect us to follow. 4. We will to 9/7. Some counselors were offended. Others nodded in understanding. Time passed. Months became years. The Kalari rebuilt their civilization with human help. Statues went up on both Kalara Prime and Earth. On Earth, they showed Ambassador Vrel bringing the cure during the Red Death. On Kalara Prime, they showed the human fleet arriving to save the survivors. But the galaxy's memory was long. Species that had been neutral before now sought human friendship. If we are ever in trouble, they said, humanity will come, and species that had been hostile reconsidered their plans. The phrase, human allies, became the most powerful protection in known space. No one wanted to face what the Krell had faced. 5 years after the battle, Captain Danny Parker returned to Kalara Prime as Earth's permanent ambassador. The planet had changed. New cities rose from the ashes, blending Kalari elegance with human practicality. Gardens bloomed where battlefields had been. Children played in those gardens. Kalari children who had survived the shelters. They ran and laughed, their trauma slowly healing. Danny visited a school one day. The teacher, a young Kalari woman who had been rescued by Sophie Green's Marines, asked if he would speak to the students. Tell them about the humans who saved us, she requested. Danny sat with the children, dozens of them gathered around. They looked at him with curious eyes. Why did you come? A young boy asked. Why did you help us when the others did not? Danny smiled. Let me tell you a story. 200 years ago, humans were dying. A plague killed billions of us. We had no hope. Then your ancestors came. They brought medicine. They saved us. And they asked for nothing in return. The children listened, fascinated. When we heard you were in trouble, Danny continued, we remembered what you did for us. We remembered that when we needed help, you came. So when you needed help, we came. Because that's what friends do. A little girl raised her hand. But so many humans died saving us. Was it worth it? Danny thought of Amy Chen, who had sacrificed her ship, of the 12,000 who had fallen, of Admiral Sullivan, who had risked everything on a single decision. Yes, he said simply, because friendship is worth any price, because loyalty matters, because when someone saves your life, you don't forget. You don't let them die alone. The teacher translated his words to the younger children who did not speak English yet. They nodded solemnly, understanding despite their age. That evening, Danny stood on a hill overlooking the main city. The sun set in brilliant colors over the rebuilt skyline. Ambassador Vrel joined him, moving slower than ever, but still present. My people have a saying now, Vrel said. In our darkest hour, the humans came. May we never forget. We have one too. Danny replied. We remember. We will answer. Vrel smiled. 2 species, bound by debt and honor. Perhaps this is what the galaxy needs. Not empires built on conquest, but friendships built on sacrifice. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun set on a world that had been saved twice. Once by Kalari, compassion. Once by human fury. Far above, in orbit, the repaired Earth defense ship Reckoning stood guard. Its crew rotated regularly, but its mission never changed. Protect the Kalari. Always. Admiral Sullivan, now retired but still teaching at the military academy, gave a lecture to new officers. Remember Kalara Prime, he told them. Remember why we fight. Not for glory, not for conquest, but for those who would do the same for us. He showed them recordings of the battle. Young officers watched in awe and horror. "Sir," one cadet asked, "would you do it again, knowing the cost?" Sullivan did not hesitate. "Yes, every time. Because that's who we are. That's who we must be." Fifth, the galaxy learned this lesson. Slowly, carefully, other species began to follow humanity's example. When the Torval species faced invasion, 3 civilizations came to help them, inspired by what humans had done. When the Nexian plague broke out, 20 species sent medicine, remembering the Kalari's ancient gift to humanity. The Galactic Council changed. Slowly, imperfectly, but it changed. Laws were passed requiring mutual defense pacts. Species could no longer ignore cries for help without consequences. Humanity changed everything, one counselor admitted. They showed us that power without compassion is empty, that strength must be matched by loyalty. Earth's influence grew, not through conquest or threats, but through example. When humans made a promise, they kept it. When they called someone a friend, they meant it. 10 years after the battle, on the anniversary of the victory, both Earth and Kalara Prime held ceremonies. On Earth, they honored the 12,000 who died. Their names were carved into a black stone wall that stretched for a kilometer. On Kalara Prime, they honored the billions who were lost and the millions who were saved. But they also honored the humans who had come. Ambassador Vrel, now impossibly old, gave a speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. His voice shook with age, but his words were clear. 200 years ago, my people saved humanity because it was right. We expected nothing. But when we were dying, humanity came. They crossed the galaxy. They fought the unconquerable Krell. They paid in blood and sacrifice. Why? Because they remembered. Because they valued friendship more than safety. This is the lesson for all species. We are stronger together. We survive together. And when one of us falls, the others must come, just as the humans came for us. The speech ended. Across the galaxy, people listened and learned. Danny Parker, now Ambassador Parker, stood before the monument on Kalara Prime. It showed a human soldier and a Kalari civilian, hands clasped in friendship. Beneath it, words in both languages. When we were dying, they came. When they were dying, we came. This is the bond that cannot break. This is friendship, eternal. Danny placed a hand on the cool stone. He thought of his grandmother, who had lived because the Kalari came. He thought of Amy Chen, and all those who died because humans came. We kept our promise, he said quietly. Above him, stars filled the sky. Somewhere out there, other species faced their own struggles. Other civilizations called for help. And somewhere, humanity was listening, ready to answer, ready to cross the galaxy again if needed, because they had learned the most important lesson. That strength without loyalty was worthless. That power without compassion was empty. That when your friends called, you answered, no matter the cost, no matter the distance, always. The galaxy had learned to fear human fury. But more importantly, it had learned to value human friendship. And in the centuries to come, that friendship would reshape the stars themselves. But that is a story for another time. For now, on a warm evening on Kalara Prime, a human ambassador and an ancient Kalari stood together, watching the sunset on a world twice saved. And they smiled, knowing that some debts, once paid, create bonds that last forever.